Hello everybody, good morning, welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge and this is your latest Manchester United news as Fabrizio Romano confirms Manchester United's interest in EZE and states that Manchester United will be signing a winger in 2025. Should we be looking at that? Should we be looking at EZE? Also, another story coming in from Court Offside that Antony is offside with Manchester United as they place him on the January transfer list. Is he going to go down as one of United's biggest flops, or is there still a way back? Also, talking about ways back, Luke Shaw rumoured to be back this week for Manchester United. Could the miracle happen? It's floating around, but as we know, some things that float are shit. So maybe it's a load of rubbish. We'll talk about that. Also, another update on Alvaro Fernandez and a few other bits we want to talk about Mazraoui as well. And I want to talk about Ralf Rangnick. Lots to get into this morning, and thankfully, hopefully, we will not have a week of talking about Ten Hag because everyone's still doing it. I wanted to draw a line under it last night. I think we did. It was a great show. We spoke about Ineos and the conclusion they've come to and why they've come to it. I think we can move on until something new happens and float towards success, maybe. But let's start off with this story coming in from EZE, not from EZE, about EZE. Very good Crystal Palace winger. Obviously, I think the first thing I would say is that, and I agree with Fabrizio on this. I mean, look, he was asked about the EZE interest and he said Man United are definitely scouting EZE and they will be signing a winger in 2025. It's a priority for Manchester United, which I think in itself is quite a big topic to start the show with, because we forget, don't we, some of us, that the Ineos strategy around the summer was based around Michael Olise. He was their number one target. You won't find anybody saying that's not true. We were talking about it from pretty much March, and everybody accepts that Ineos really wanted to bring Olise to the football club, and probably Ten Hag as well, to be fair. And you see what he was doing in the Premier League towards the end of last season, and he's had a good start to his Bayern Munich career. You do wonder what might have happened, and there's no point in trying to think that one player would have meant we would have had a good start to the season, but I think it's fair to say that the jury is out on a lot of our wingers for different reasons, and Olise is clearly now a Bayern Munich player, but it was clearly an itch that Manchester United wanted to scratch, and it clearly is still one that they want to scratch. Now, EZE is somebody that Man United are scouting. We were linked to them yesterday in the press, but I didn't really fancy it based on where it was coming from. But now that Fabrizio's spoken about it, and now we've got this story coming out about Antony, is that why Man United are looking to do this? I think they're looking to do it for the same reason they were looking to do it with Olise. I think they're looking for a winger that offers something different to what we currently have. I think the progression of Ahmad is very interesting. I think Garnacho's ceiling is very high. I think we will persist trying to find the Marcus Rashford of a few years ago. But even if all three of those players exceed, do they have the profile of a winger that I think Man United are looking at? And I think what they're looking at is a little bit more creativity. A winger, maybe a little bit more like Anthony Gordon or someone like that. I'm not saying we're looking at Anthony Gordon, but a winger that really focuses on their craft of being a winger and being creative. And I don't think maybe in Ahmad, but I don't think Garnacho and Rashford, taking nothing away from them when they're playing well, they're just different types of wingers. So I think Man United are certainly going to be looking at one. And I agree. I don't know about you. I actually agree. I think if we could have got Olise in the summer, I would have been very excited. And I think what excited me about it was that it's not the most obvious signing to make. A lot of people would say, no. We need a striker. I'm talking about back in May. We need a striker. We need two centre-backs. We need a midfielder. And yes, we do. But the fact that a winger was prioritised, even though we didn't get one, I found it quite exciting because I was like, well, we've got Antony, we've got Ahmad, we had Sancho at that point, Greenwood hadn't gone at that point, you've got Garnacho, you've got Rashford, and you still want to bring a winger in. To me, I find that quite interesting and quite exciting that we would look to do that. I suppose the question is, if we're looking at this in 2025, and this is what Fabrizio Romano has said, he's basically said that Man United want to bring an important winger in 2025 and that EZE is being scouted. The interesting thing he said about EZE is that if Man United want to sign EZE, he has got a release clause, which is believed to be around £65 million. But that release clause involves paying the fee up front. So very similar to Xerxes, where it was 32 or 33 and we ended up paying 35 because we had to pay a little bit more because we couldn't pay it all up front. I'll be honest, I don't fancy EZE at Manchester United. I just don't feel it's the right signing for Manchester United. And excuse me, oh, I'm yawning, but yeah, I don't find it a boring topic, by the way. I think EZE is a good player, but I just think that I was looking at this the other day, and he's currently 26. Next summer he'll be 27. Do I think it's a good idea to pay £65 million for a 27-year-old who's played for QPR and Crystal Palace and barely gets picked for England? I agree, Harry. I think he's a baller, but I don't think. I don't think he's the type of winger I want, and that's where I would throw it over to Ineos and say, you've got to do some work here, because we've literally just bought a winger in from Crystal Palace. I know he's only 16, 17 years of age, and we haven't seen anything of him yet, but we need a winger who's creative. Look, we all want Yamal. We all want Nico Williams, but those two wingers in the Euros showed us what evolution of football you can play and still be, very much about wing play. Man United, I just wonder whether, when we're looking at the identity of Man United under Ineos, and Sir Jim Radcliffe is at the very top of that, I just wonder if there is somebody in there saying, look, Man United's always been about wing play. We want to play with wingers, because you can do that in the modern game. You can. I've mentioned Anthony Gordon. Mo Salah's had a very good career from the wing. Saka from the wing. We've mentioned Williams and Yamal for Spain. And obviously domestically, of course. But you can be very, very successful from the wing. And I think that, unfortunately, we haven't really had that for a long time. Unfortunately, it's probably one of those things that has occurred over the last decade, isn't it, as well, where our wingers just haven't. We've had good wingers. Look at Mason Greenwood off the right-hand side when he first came along. Was he particularly creative, or was he more about scoring goals from the right-hand side? Marcus Rashford, same again, scoring goals. We need to find wingers that, yes, can score goals, but primarily can create. And I think that there will be plenty coming through. The one thing about football at the moment I find weird is that the penalty box striker is almost dying. And this is what happens with football. You have this evolution of football where certain positions become prioritised and you get loads of them. When I was growing up in the sort of mid-90s, there was just loads of good strikers in the Premier League, out-and-out goal scorers. I don't think there's as many now, but I think when you look at what's going on and maybe what's being developed, who are the big players at the moment? Vinicius Junior, Yamal. I think there will be an abundance of young, talented wingers coming through. And I think that's where Man United have got to have their finger on the pulse, because I'm not sure that spending 65, 70 million pounds on EZE is going to solve our winger issue. But I think scouting and bringing in some really good younger players could be the solution to it. But look, Fabrizio says we're going to buy a winger in 2025. I'm certainly up for that. I think I want Man United to be good off the wing. I want us to have exciting wingers who can create and score goals. And look, let's watch that space. But apparently we are scouting EZE. But just to go back very quickly before we move on, the problem with EZE will be, if we've got to find the £65 million, we won't have the £65 million, because we know Man United can be active in the transfer market. But at the moment, predominantly we are doing our deals based on number of years paying it back. Like, we haven't paid the full price on any of our signings in the summer. They will be paid in stages over a number of years. I'd be disappointed, says Rory C. Good morning, Rory C. I would be disappointed if EZE is the best the dream team can come up with. Send your scouts around the world. Absolutely, exactly. Yeah, absolutely, exactly. I completely agree with you on that one. A second look, there's quite a lot of news to get into for a news show this morning, and none of it involves managers. So I'm actually quite revitalised and excited to start the week on a Monday morning with loads of stories got nothing to do with the manager. So the second story that's coming in from Court Offside, which is a website that Fabrizio actually does do work for. Ben Jacobs does stuff for them as well. So they're saying that Antony's career at Manchester United is basically done. He will be up for sale in January. Ajax, Newcastle and Crystal Palace are interested. Now, look, I mean, yeah, I think, yes, Adig says EZE for 60 million is not worth it. And I think the Antony situation, I mean, he's had 2 full seasons at Manchester United, and basically at Christmas it'll be 2.5. You are definitely in the zone, the danger zone, for being a flop, of course. And some people have been saying it for a very long time. Look, I'm not going to lie. You know, name me a perfection on football analysis, and you know, I got sent a piece from a newspaper in 2003 when Arsenal had just won the Invincibles, and this journalist said it's time for Sir Alex Ferguson to retire. Wenger has completely and utterly finished him off and shown him to be, you know, past it. It's time for Sir Alex to retire and look back on his successes because there's a new Don in town. Arsenal never won the league again. Man United went and won another 6 or 5 plus another Champions League. So there is no perfect opinion out there. We all think we've got the perfect opinion, and that's the beauty of football. We all think we know what we're talking about, and sometimes we do, but sometimes we talk absolute shite. When we signed Antony, I really thought that we had a player there that was very exciting. In fact, I said at the time, that summer when we bought Martinez and we bought Casemiro and we bought all those players, I said that to me, why am I yawning so much this morning? I don't know why I'm yawning so much. I must have had a bad night's sleep. I said that Antony was the player that excited me the most. Now, Memphis Depay excited me a lot. What he did for PSV the year before we bought him, I thought we were buying one of the best players in the world. I genuinely thought when we bought Memphis, what he'd done for PSV, I thought he was going to be one of the world's best players. I mean, we gave him the number 7 shirt. There are so many signings over the last 10 years that get forgotten that you can go back and analyse and go, oh my God, look how bad that went. But with Antony, I understood that Antony was a bit niche. I genuinely knew it was like a little bit less obvious than Memphis. But I did think he was going to be a good player. I didn't watch Ajax week in, week out, but I saw enough of Ajax and I saw enough of Antony to think, here's somebody who can play off the right and be really creative. It's just not happened. It's just not happened. And we know we paid £80 million, and we know why we paid £80 million, because Man United didn't do the deal in June. Ajax had sold nearly all of their players and basically said, you're not having him unless you pay stupid money, and we paid stupid money. So the fee is never going to be useful. But even if we'd spent £50 million on Antony, or £90 million, like Caleb says, I think the price is irrelevant. The price is almost immature. We're better than this. Let me say this. If we'd spent what we should have spent in June, £50 million, he'd still be a massive flop. People get locked in on the 80 million. Well, that's John Murtagh. That's the Glazers. Ten Hag didn't negotiate that deal. Ten Hag said buy him. And what people don't realise is they talk about 80 million like it's like Ineos did it or Ten Hag did it. That happened because we left it late in the window. Ten Hag wanted Antony in June, and United walked away from it. And then we lost the first 2 games of the season and they shit themselves and went and spent 80 million. So that's just typical Glazeronomics. But the important thing is, if we'd spent 50 million, if we'd spent market value, he'd still be a flop. So the price is somewhat, well, the price is embarrassing, but it's somewhat irrelevant. Because 50 million or 80 million, it's not like he's worth 50 million. He's worth nothing, really. I mean, what would you get from him? What would you get for him as a fee at the moment? You'd do well to get 25. So we've massively got this wrong. I don't know how you offload a player like this. I really don't. Because his wage will be ridiculous as well, which again is another legacy of Man United that we've been doing for years. But I don't see a way back. It would be miraculous. It would be the best case scenario if he could start scoring goals and playing well. But yeah, I don't see a way back. I think it's been. I just think the obvious, nicest thing to say is that Garnacho, Rashford, and Ahmad are all better. So I just can't see a way back for him. Whether we can move him on or not, we'll have to wait and see. Robert McCormack is wearing my new United Stand jumper because it's cold. Yep, you can get yours. Links in the description. I haven't hung it up today, but it's a beauty. There it is. This is not what Robert's wearing. I've not just took it off him. Get yours now. They are knitted and they are limited edition. So when they're gone, they're gone. Loving the umbug instead of the umbro on the arm, by the way. Yeah, get those out. Thank you, Robert. Thanks for your super chat this morning. Hope you're doing well. Liam says, Nipan, Bardi, Astavio, Young Creatives. I've probably ruined their names, Liam, but there's plenty out there. Would you try playing Antony on the left, says H. de Villiers. No. No. I mean, the Garnacho-Rashford debate is a good one. I'm not interested in adding Antony into that at all at the moment, really. Anyway, look, get your comments in. Lots to talk about this morning. Talking about the left, we're not going to get political. Talking about the left, let's talk about the left-back situation. We don't have one. Couple of stories coming in this morning. Relatively positive, actually. Yeah, relatively positive. So, Luke Shaw. There are rumours going around that Luke Shaw is back close to being fit for the first team. There are even people putting articles out there that he might be available for Brentford on Saturday. Now, the latest I've had this morning, because the Manchester Evening News have also spoken about Mazraoui being back, and we'll talk about that in a moment, but not immediately back, but they've put a time limit on it. Luke Shaw back for the game on Saturday has been floating around in certain arenas. As I said at the start of the show, when I think of the word floaters, I don't think of anything positive. And I don't think you do. If I said to you, what do you think about when I say the word float or floaters? A lot of people are going to think something crap. And therefore, this story floating around, I think, could be crap. Luke Shaw starting against Brentford for me is... I mean, I got laughed at when I asked somebody around that sort of world this morning. They laughed and went, where have you heard this from? And I said, there's a few stories about it. They said, look, we'll have to wait and see on Saturday, but the last they heard was Luke Shaw wasn't even in a position to train with the first team. It wasn't even confirmed that he was back training on grass. So, as we know, we've seen... In fact, Yoro's a good example. So, Yoro's on the treadmill at the moment. He's not on the grass. And then when he's trained on the grass on his own, he can then start doing non-contact ball work. And then after that, you start doing contact ball work and training with the first team. And even then, you might be 2 weeks away from actually playing for the first team. So the fact that Luke Shaw is being rumoured to be back for the Brentford game just sounds preposterous. It would be nice, but nobody even knows if he's back training on grass individually yet, let alone training with the first team. So... And of course, as we know with Luke Shaw, training with the first team one day, back on the treatment table the next. So yeah, I mean, we just can't rely. You can't rely on this player. We can't rely on him at all. It's not like, what did I say? And I'll still do it. I said I'll give £1,000 to charity on Christmas Eve if he comes back from this injury and stays fit. Well, I don't know whether he's heard that, because I've got the feeling he's not going to bloody come back before Christmas at this rate. So I'm saying he'll get injured again. But I was thinking he would be back in September. I'm not sure he's going to be back before November, really. So, but look, let's wait and see. Let's wait and see. We might get something positive, but yeah, there is something out there. There are some people out there talking about Luke Shaw being back. I mean, I'll be pleasantly surprised if he's back in this gap between the next international break. To be honest with you, I mean, we've only got Brentford this weekend, West Ham, that's 1 week, Chelsea, that's 2 weeks, Leicester, that's 3 weeks. Yeah, we play a lot of games, but it's in a 3-week period, isn't it? So I just don't see him being back. I really don't. But we'll have to wait and see. Malacia, nothing's come out on Malacia. We do know Malacia's been training with the first team, so I would say Malacia's more likely to be back But of course, Malacia has not played for 18 months, so it's a long one. Manchester Evening News this morning have said about Mazraoui that he will be back in 3 weeks. Again, when you figure it out, we play a lot of games within 3 weeks, and then it's another international break. So I would work on the assumption that we won't see Mazraoui until right before the international break. Now, I know the Moroccan coach has said that they expect Mazraoui back soon, potentially even for the next internationals. So, yeah, I mean, the thing about Mazraoui is, and I think I'm right in saying this, that the news that's come out is that it is a heart procedure. I mean, how long does that take for you to get fit for? You'll be following medical advice on that. It's not like if you've got a bit of a calf strain and they say 4 weeks, and then after 2 weeks you feel absolutely fine in your back. I would imagine you're following with those sort of procedures. It's not like you've, like I say, you've twisted your ankle. It's a heart condition. So I would imagine that is not something where you can push it. So again, with Mazraoui, we might not see him back until after the international break either. So we're going to be in problems when it comes to our fullback situation, aren't we? Definitely. Talking about a positive on the fullback situation, though, bit of news for you. Alvaro Fernandez, doing very well at Benfica at the moment, was linked to Real Madrid and Barcelona over the weekend. He's now been linked to Liverpool for £50 million, which is just incredible. Obviously, Liverpool have bought from Benfica before, most notably Nunez. So those connections are there. Anthony Robinson's not getting any younger. Tsimikas has never really grabbed that mantle as being a long-term heir to the throne. So Alvaro Fernandez being linked to Liverpool for a £50 million deal just again shows you how highly rated at the moment this player is. Obviously, Benfica have had that glow up since that Champions League win over Atletico Madrid, where they pumped them like a hot air balloon. And the hot air balloons get pumped? No, I meant a beach ball. Yeah, it could have been more X-rated, but it is a morning news show, and some people literally just watch this show for the news. I mean, I know there's somebody who lives around the corner, Dorothy. She's in her 80s, long-time United fan. She's not going to like me say. She only watches the news show. If I say, yeah, the Atletico Madrid got pumped like a... Yeah, it's just not going to work. So anyway, we won't be doing any of that. But positive news for Manchester United. We're not about to buy him back for £50 million. We have a buyback clause of 16.5 million. So all this interest around Alvaro Fernandez at the moment, and some big fees are being mentioned. Manchester United's release buyback clause for Alvaro Fernandez is apparently £16.5 million. Benfica will still make some profit on that, of course. I would presume we have a percentage in any sell-on as well, but I don't know when it becomes available, Alias. He says, when does that become available from? Because he's not been there that long. Exactly. Is it available in January? Can we get him back then? Yeah, well, it's a good point, but I suppose... It poses the question to me. We have got Cambuala. I don't know how well he's doing in Spain, but Cambuala has got, he's at Villarreal, isn't he? He's got a buyback clause. A lot of our players do. The lad who was Adiemi, who's played against Bruno, actually. I think he played for Poland, didn't he? I think we've got a release buyback on him. So, yeah, it's a player that could end up coming back to Manchester United, I suppose. Why have they been so secretive about Malacia's injury, says LMP? We've never actually found out what happened, did we? Be nice to have a left-back. I think what I was told about Malacia's injury is, and there has been some secrecy because some people thought he was in witness protection. It got really stupid at one time. But knee injury, bad operation, new knee injury is what I got told. So he has been out. I mean, he hasn't broken the world record for being out with a knee injury, because the world record will have been broken by people who never came back from having such a bad knee injury. So it's not like that. But I do think that, well, look at Lavia at Chelsea. He was out for a year, comes back, and he's out again. This is the big problem with Malacia, is that he's been out for so long, his body's just not used to playing high-intensity football. So... yeah, it concerns me because I don't think he was that good before. I'm not saying he was bad before, but he was potential before. He wasn't the finished article. So we're bringing back a kid that was potential before his injury and hoping he's going to be the solution after 18 months out when he wasn't the solution before. It's a tough one. And as I've said before, I don't want to be the prophet of doom, but I'd be very surprised if he plays at the highest level again. I think it's going to be very, very difficult for him. And I think certainly there'll be a secondary injury very, very soon because that tends to happen. But Mr. AA's right. The story basically is that Malacia's knee injury was messed up. Kyle says Manchester United have until 2026 summer transfer window to activate their buyback on Alvaro Fernandez. Okay, so we've got this summer and that's well, at least it's in place now. Then that would there we go. Trishan says they messed up his knee surgery and the people who did it are getting sued. Apparently, I don't know whether that's true. And Amir says he will surely still play at the highest level. You don't know, mate. You don't know if if you go in for an operation on your back and they mess it up, your back might be a problem for the rest of your life. We don't know. It's a long, long, long time to be out. When you think about it, I think the last time he played for Man United was April 22. That's incredible. Have I got that right? No, April 23. Yeah, April 23. 22. God, bloody hell. Taking back to COVID. No, it was April 23, wasn't it? So he's been out for 18 months. So that's a hell of a long time. It really is. Rory says, in relation to Mazraoui, the mental recovery could take a while. Yeah, I mean, I think Man United will be very, very... The thing about Mazraoui and the heart issue is that I guarantee there'll be people at Man United. I don't know this because Ineos lock a lot of stuff down at the highest level on the board, and that's great to know. But what you do get is you do get little bits of information that come out from lower down. And obviously that's why we tend to find out what's happening with injuries, because Man United, for a few years now, have not been great at updating on injuries. I mean, what's going on with Mason Mount? What's going on with Luke Shaw? So you almost need those little bits of information to come out. What has come out around the medical area of Manchester United is there is a lot of confusion and disarray around what is actually happening with so many different things. I remember when we bought Rafael Varane, it came out from people close to the medical side of Man United that Varane came to Man United with an issue. I believe it was his ankle, but Varane came to Man United with an issue that was well known. Man United knew about it. And we know what happened afterwards. The Luke Shaw thing is apparently a very, very high level issue at Man United. They are furious about how that happened, that he ended up going to the Euros, because it's embarrassed the football club and it's cost us a left back. And I'm sure the Mazraoui thing will be being looked at, because in a medical, you would have thought they've picked that up. And if they have picked it up, have we decided, oh, it doesn't matter? There's just so many things that are being scrutinised around Man United's medical team at the moment. Mason Mount is another one. It's a very overworked and overanalyzed department because it's costing Man United a lot of money. What people don't realise as well, and people never talk about this, is the financial cost. You add up Mason Mount's wages over the last year and a bit. You do it. I can't think. It's £1 million a month, isn't it? He's on 250 grand a week. So we are spending £1 million a month on him, on wages, on top of what we paid. So he's not playing, and we're paying £1 million a month. Luke Shaw is on not £1 million a month, but he's, God knows how many millions we've spent on Luke Shaw this year for him to go and play for England and not play for us at all. So the financial cost is something that Ineos are very aware of, because obviously they've let a lot of people go. A lot of people have been sacked or made redundant, or however you want to call it. So they're very aware of the financial cost as well. They're very aware of the football cost. We haven't got a left back, but they're also very aware that Malacia and Luke Shaw have probably cost them easily £1 million a month combined for the last year. And they've not played. So we're paying £1 million a month on left backs. It'd be more than £1 million a month, actually, because Luke Shaw's rumoured to be on about 100 and I think it's about 175k a week, and Malacia will be on maybe 50. So no, it'd be about £1 million a month on left backs, and they don't even play. The club needs to be ruthless regarding the left backs, says Bonk. Thank you very much for your super chat, pal. And when we were out to buy Antony for 80 million, couldn't take Ten Hag, have blocked it and said he's not worth it, says Lookman. Yeah, he could have done, but I'll say this to you, Lookman, right? It's the last few days of the transfer window, and you've got the choice between taking Antony or not taking him. A manager who's worked with that player is going to take him, isn't he? The price that we paid was ridiculous, but look, on the other hand, the other way of looking at it is that Sir Alex Ferguson bought flops, Ollie bought flops, Pep's bought flops. A player flopping is not really here nor there. People always flop, but the problem is how do you move that flop on? That's the problem we've had for a decade. How do we move these flops on? Because what tends to happen is, yeah, we're very good at replacing managers, but we're very, very bad at when that new manager comes in saying, you've got to work with these players that flopped for the previous guy. I just find that incredible. If I walk into an office tomorrow as an office manager and my team has got people on it that cost the previous person their job, and I say to my boss, well, we're getting rid of these then. No, you've got to work with them. Hold on a minute. I didn't recruit them and they cost the previous guy the job and I've got to work with them. Welcome to Man United. And how many managers have we done that to? Certainly Van Gaal, certainly Jose, certainly Ollie, and certainly Ten Hag. And that to me is the big thing. I accept that we will get flops, but why do we lock ourselves into them? And this comes down to wages, and this comes down to transfer fees at the outset. And when I look at this summer that's just gone, are we locked in on any of those players? If Xerxes flops, are we locked in? We spent £34 million on him. We're not locked in. If De Ligt flops, £42 million, we're not really locked in, are we? Mazraoui certainly not at £15 million. Look, Lenny Yoro's a big signing at 18. You know, if that goes wrong, you know, you'll get some of it back. But even then, 52 million, you'll get some of it back. I think that the biggest problem we've had is that we've overpaid on players and we've overpaid on wages for so long that when it goes wrong, they're just unsellable assets. Harvey says a thumping against Brentford is the final straw. Harvey, you look like you want one, which I just don't understand. When it comes to Mazraoui, I believe United knew about his issues because Bayern knew about it and could be why he went for cheap compared to how the market was, says Trigger. You could be right. Michael Doherty says, when signing players, why do they not put them on probation like most players do nowadays? Because it's power of the market, Michael. If Man United said to De Ligt, we want you to come on probation, he'll go, fuck you, I'm going to go and sign for somebody else because there'll be somebody else who will take him on. The players have the power at the end of the day. But look, somebody mentioned this to me yesterday. I wanted to bring this in. I mean, get your questions in. Austria 5, Norway 1 last night. Now, Norway were top of that group. They're now joint with Austria. 5-1 to Ralf Rangnick's Norway. Now, I'm not focusing on this because it's international football, but a lot of people were talking about Rangnick yesterday, and I thought I would just reiterate it again. We've made some mistakes at Manchester United over the last decade, but I am not going to move away from this. As he moves away for the morning sneeze. I think that... I think the removal of Ralf Rangnick from this football club a couple of years ago has to go down as one of the biggest mistakes we've made. He wasn't brought in to be a coach, and I didn't want him to be a coach, but we had a guy who could have been our director of football, and he would have been the best director of football we could have had, and we absolutely messed it up. It's incredible to me because not only was this somebody that's clearly got a very good vision on style of football, but also has a great track record in relation to recruitment. And it's funny how there are certain people, certainly in the media, who, in my opinion, basically bullied Rangnick in a way, who now talk about him glowingly and try and pin it on the fans for getting rid of him, which definitely didn't happen. Most Man United fans I interacted with around that time actually really liked Rangnick, liked his interviews and respected what he said. It was the media that took the piss out of him and the club that took the piss out of him. But yeah, no, I just wanted to say about Rangnick, it's got nothing to do with beating Norway 5-1. I think that's one of the biggest mistakes we've made, because unlike sacking Jose or whoever else, that was a managerial decision. Ralf Rangnick was brought into this football club to be an interim manager until the summer and assess the club from the bottom to the top. He was meant to go upstairs in the summer, knowing what he knew about the squad and implementing it at a higher level. It was one of the best strategic appointments we'd ever made. Throwing a guy in low with the intention of him going higher so he'd understand what goes on down there would have been one of the most intelligent things we've done in the club's history, to actually put a builder at the foundation and then move him up. But obviously we didn't do that because certain people in the football club didn't like what he was saying in the press conference about the honesty of the issue and calling out some of the problems. And some people took that personally and basically stabbed him in the back and sacked him. But when you look at the sheer volume of players that he spoke about in his time at Manchester United that have then gone on to other clubs and done well, it becomes even more scary. Vardiel, Luis Diaz, Alvarez, Enzo Fernandez, Lema, just to name a few. There's loads more. But these were names that he was name dropping from the January to the summer that Man United should be going for, that he probably would have been able to helped us to get. So look, yeah, regardless of what people think about beating Norway 5-1, it doesn't really matter what he's done since Manchester United. The evidence was there in the time at Manchester United that he could have been a very, very, very big part of our future build. And actually, I think the big shame about Rangnick is it's a bit like Pochettino and Man United. The ships just pass in the night and they never meet. And I think if Rangnick had been here with Ineos, we would have been onto something. We would have been, because it would have been perfect. Having someone like Rangnick above any manager would be great, but having someone like Rangnick working with the structure that we now have would have been fantastic. And it's scary. And you know, we spoke about Memphis Depay. We spoke about all the money we spent. It's scary how many times we got it wrong over the last decade, and that's why we've got to try and get it right now, because we've had opportunities. We can't just sit there going, "Oh, woe is us, woe is us." You know, we've just been so unlucky over the last 10 years, and we haven't. We've had opportunities to make better choices. Like, we shouldn't have let the players sack Jose. We shouldn't have spent 1.5 billion the way we spent it. We shouldn't have let Old Trafford rot over the last decade as well, and we should not have let Rangnick go. It was absolutely stupid. Wall says, I've spoke about Fernandez on this channel times and time again. It's sackable that Ten Hag let him go. I don't think it is, mate. I don't think it's sackable because you let a player go. I really don't. I think it's sackable for a lot more reasons than that. Raccoon says, bless you. Thank you very much. Appreciate that. I think that Mark wants to show positivity. We're not talking, Jan, I'm not talking about the manager. Not talking about the manager. I'm bored of it. I read your comments, and we've got Beth on at 2 o'clock, who is now recovered and well, who missed all of last week feeling sick. Now, at 2 o'clock, if you want to talk about the manager, I know Beth's going to talk about the manager at 2 o'clock because she hasn't had a chance to talk about it for a week, and she's revved up and ready to go. But I've got no interest in it. And I'm really glad that this morning we've spoken about different things, because what do you want me to say about the manager? He's the manager at the moment. We're back in training this week. We've got Brentford on Saturday. Ineos have decided to stick with things for now. He's on thin ice. Just going to get a load of people going, oh, PR, oh, toxic positivity, oh, we should have sacked him. I'm not saying any of those things are wrong. Not saying any of those things are wrong. What I'm saying is where things are at the moment is where we are, and talking about it's not going to change that. Massive game on Saturday, as we know. If you want to watch a video about it that actually really dissects it, last night I thought was a very good video. How Ineos reached their Ten Hag conclusion, and I think, as I said, there's a little bit of a grab. I think they are very focused on trying to work with the board on what they put in place in the summer. And more importantly, I think that the manager market isn't one they want to jump into in October, just the same as they didn't want to jump into it in May. I think they've got an idea. I genuinely think, just to say this, I think at the end of the strategic review in May, when they were deciding whether to keep Ten Hag or not, I think that this is a prediction. I think at the end of that strategic review, when they'd spoken to a load of managers and they'd looked at Ten Hag, I think it's probably in there and we'll never read it. I think the top line was, there is not a manager at the moment that we want to take this job. The managers we want, we can't get. Therefore, when they make a change, I think it's going to be dependent on when they can get the managers that they want. And obviously the managers that they want, they still can't get at the moment. I've said this before. If Nagelsmann was available now, would they jump for it? Would they have gone for it in May? We'll never know. In the sense that we're now struggling with left, says Wall. Okay. Rangnick deserved to stay on, says Obi-Wan. He should have got the technical position. They just didn't want to admit he was right with his findings. Now it's a rush job on the open heart surgery. Well, the reason Rangnick went is because he publicly exposed the problems at Man United. And then the Glazers basically went, he's just told the world the problem. If we keep him, he's going to keep telling the world and we're not going to let him solve it. So we need to get rid of him. So they misjudged Rangnick. Rangnick, in many ways, is one of the positives of our recent history because he sat there in a position of power where he was training the players weekly on a daily basis, and he basically told the world that it was toxic and it needed open heart surgery and there was a lot wrong with the football club. And the Glazers sort of went, shit, we've recruited this guy. We didn't realise he was going to tell the world what the problem is. And the biggest problem is we haven't got the desire to do what he wants to do. Because Rangnick would have said, sell him, and him. And the Glazers would have gone, we can't sell them because we can't afford to. And then that would have been... I understand why Rangnick went. Never should have happened, but I understand why he went. Because people say, oh, we should have kept him. It was untenable. What he wanted to do, the Glazers couldn't do. That's why they got rid of him. They didn't like what he said, of course, but he couldn't do what they wanted to do. Like, he would not have been given the freedom to do it anyway. So that's why they didn't keep him, because he would have been, I need to do this, and they would have been, well, you can't. And we don't even know if you can do that now. Who's doing open heart surgery now? Like, this is the hilarious thing. What Rangnick said is true. 2 years later, where's the open heart surgery? We're buying players that everyone goes, oh, everything's changing, but where are the sales? Where are the sales? Oh, Martial and Varane went. Oh, end of contract. Greenwood went, not for a lot of money. Sancho's on loan at Chelsea. Casemiro's still here. Eriksen's still here. Lindelof's still here. The big sales that people think are open heart surgery have never even been considered. In fact, one of them got a new contract. Some of you would have sold Bruno. They gave him a new contract. So this open heart surgery hasn't even happened yet. So, yeah, Rangnick, I wish he had stayed, but it's not like we've implemented it. We've not done any open heart surgery yet. We've bought more players, but we haven't removed any of the problems. We're still terrible at that. I find it hilarious. I think the only sale we did in the summer that I would go, that was a decent bit of business, was Scott McTominay. I think 25 million for McTominay, a player I thought we might keep. I actually thought that was a good deal. But all the other deals, Wan-Bissaka, oh, what a surprise. Hardly went for anything. John says we can't blame Ten Hag on the left-back situation. I don't think we know what the situation is there with that. Rick says, morning all, do a random act of kindness today. And Harvey says the fans kept Ten Hag. Mate, what was your other crap opinion of this morning? The fans don't do anything. Ineos have got to make their own mind up. They've recruited enough people who are meant to be specialists in football without having to go on Twitter and look at a Twitter poll, mate. They'll make their own minds up. It's just, I mean, I'd be very happy if they were listening to fans, but I don't think they would, should, or will. I think they've got their own ideas on what they want to do. And if they were listening to the fans, then surely they would have sacked him last week because of the uproar that was out there, which was the same uproar for keeping him in the summer. So I don't think they're listening to fans at all. I just think you don't like the fact that they've made a different decision to the one you want to happen. And I don't think you go and buy and recruit all these people and then start listening to, Twitter polls. Anyway, the Glazers heard Rangnick say we needed open heart surgery. So, okay, I'm not reading that, Jason. That's way below the belt for a morning show. Dorothy will not be happy. I think on that, we'll call it a morning show for now. Thanks everybody for watching this morning. Fantastic and great to have a show that was just not talking about managers. Very, very satisfying to start the week with something a little bit different. And I hope you have a great day. Actually, just talking about that, I'm in the Goldbridge Arms at midday. We're talking about the Premier League so far. And Man United actually feature at the start of the show. We're talking about Man United at the start of the show. So we're in the Goldbridge Arms live at midday, which is just over an hour away. Take care, everyone. Have a great day. I am playing my Man United career mode this afternoon at about 3 o'clock as well. So I'll see you for that. And thank you very much. Take care.